On this Sunday night, countdown to the resumption of war. With a ceasefire between Iran, the U.S. and Israel set to end on Wednesday.
We are confident they will come to the table.
The stumbling block to peace talks and the renewed threats from both sides. The high cost of war for air travel.
Some airports will be starting to run out of fuel probably within the next couple of weeks.
Why experts say be prepared for soaring fares and flight cancellations. Reverse engines. Ontario announces it's returning a jet it just purchased for the Premier's use. And monkey love.
People look at baby monkeys and say, oh, I can take good care of that baby monkey.
What our obsession with these orphan primates says about us.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Colleen Christie.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. U.S. President Donald Trump says a delegation will be back in Islamabad tomorrow for high-stakes talks aimed at ending the Iran war and accused the regime of violating the fragile ceasefire that ends Wednesday. But Tehran says any mention of a second round of negotiations is not true. Tonight, both sides remain far apart on key sticking points, including the standoff over the Strait of Hormuz, where tensions remain high. And late today, President Trump confirmed an Iranian-flagged tanker trying to skirt the U.S. naval blockade had been intercepted by U.S. Marines. It comes after Tehran warned President Trump's excessive demands and threatening rhetoric about striking Iranian infrastructure were hindering the process. Candice Cole has our top story.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is leading a delegation set to arrive in Islamabad Monday for another round of negotiations with Iran after a failed attempt earlier this month yielded no progress on ending the now 51-day war between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. The trip, which includes Jared Kushner, U.S. President Donald Trump's son-in-law, comes after Trump accused Iran of being in total violation of their ceasefire agreement set to expire Wednesday.
You gave me clearance to go. You are fighting now. Let me turn back.
After Iranian gunboats fired on oil tankers attempting passage through the critical Strait of Hormuz, which a fifth of the world's oil travels through. Sunday, via Truth Social, Trump said the U.S. is offering a very fair and reasonable deal, and if they don't take it, the U.S. will knock out every single power plant and bridge in Iran.
Iran does not have the cards, and we are confident they will come to the table and finally give up their obsession with having a nuclear weapon.
American UN Ambassador Mike Waltz said on CBS Sunday the U.S. is also prepared to sanction Iranian banks as well as their oil.
This is a whole-of-government, full-on press. I hope we don't have to go back to a military option.
Iran so far has not confirmed their participation in peace talks in Pakistan, holding fast to their position that the U.S. must end its blockade of Iranian ports before they reopen the Strait of Hormuz, threatening to halt oil production for a year. Iran's chief negotiator Mohammad Bakir Kalibov says the U.S. must win the trust of the Iranian people and abandon its approach to forcefully impose something on Iran as a negotiating tactic. Trump has continuously praised, quote, very good conversations with Tehran. As Kalibov says, the U.S. and Iran remain far apart on Iran's nuclear program and the Strait of Hormuz. Candice Cole, Global News, Washington.
Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky has taken aim at Washington's easing of sanctions against Russian energy, saying Vladimir Putin has become one of the biggest beneficiaries of the Iran conflict. On social media, Zelensky warned every dollar paid for Russian oil is money for the war. His statement follows the Trump administration extending its waiver of sanctioned Russian oil and petroleum products just days after a top cabinet official said the U.S. would not be doing so. The extension underscores how the fallout from the war has made it easier for Moscow to profit from its energy products. Zelensky says the revenue is directly converted into new strikes against Ukraine.
Many of our former strengths, based on our close ties to America, have become our weaknesses, weaknesses that we must correct.
In a video posted online, Prime Minister Mark Carney says the world is more dangerous and divided and warned of the need to reduce our reliance on the U.S. The Prime Minister says the country has faced threats before and reiterated his government's Canada Strong plan to boost the economy and increase defense spending. And starting Monday, Ottawa is suspending the federal fuel excise tax on gas, diesel and aviation fuel for the next 5 months as prices continue to soar due to the ongoing war in Iran. Airlines around the world are already scaling back flights because of jet fuel costs and availability. And experts say the worst is yet to come. Heather Yourex-West looks at what that could mean for your travel plans.
Air travel set to become more expensive with fewer options as the jet fuel crisis deepens around the world.
We're going to go to Italy. After that, we're going to Austria for a bit. And then at the end, we'll round it out with a trip to London.
But with the war in Iran still blocking the Strait of Hormuz, the critical energy shipping route that supplies 20% of the world's oil, airports reliant on Middle East jet fuel exports will soon be running dry. The International Energy Agency warning last week Europe has only a 6-week supply.
That's not going to be a uniform 6 weeks. It's going to be some cities and some airports will be starting to run out of fuel probably within the next couple of weeks, and it'll progress to to that 6-week deadline where most of European airports will have run out of aviation.
That timeline means Canadians could see their summer travel plans upended if they include European or Southeast Asian destinations. With flight cancellations expected, advocates say it's important travelers become familiar with their rights.
The onus is always on the airline. Even if there is a complete grounding of all flights because of a global fuel crisis, the airline becomes responsible for rebooking the passengers on the next available flight.
Though North America won't experience shortages like European and Asian markets, rising prices prompted Air Canada Friday to suspend 6 summer routes, including daily flights from Montreal and Toronto to JFK. Industry watchers say flights in and out of London may be particularly vulnerable as the hub struggles to maintain its jet fuel supply.
Europe is going to have to start rationing fuel. And I think that the ration will affect primarily short-haul flights in Europe.
As the industry works to prioritize transatlantic flights, with the World Cup set to begin in North America in just over 7 weeks' time. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
If you're in the market for a gently used private jet, Ontario has one for sale. Just this week, the province purchased a $28.9 million Bombardier Challenger 650 for Premier Doug Ford's use, prompting immediate backlash. Lexi Benedict has more from Toronto on the flip-flop.
Buying a luxury jet that he does not need. Nobody needs that.
A high-flying idea now having to make an emergency landing. Just days after confirming the purchase of a nearly $30 million jet, the Ford government is backtracking on its decision and will now be selling the aircraft. It was confirmed on Friday that the province had purchased a pre-owned Bombardier Challenger 650, a 12-seater aircraft with a $28.9 million price tag, paid for with taxpayer dollars. Ford defended the purchase, saying that the jet would allow for flexible and secure travel across the country and beyond. But the decision quickly sparked political turbulence, with critics dubbing it the gravy plane.
And it's especially outrageous when so many people right now are struggling just to put food on the table, pay the rent or their mortgage, and just get by month to month.
It was frivolous, unnecessary, especially at a time when people are just struggling in general.
He could fly commercial, like the rest of everybody else that does.
In a statement to Global News on Sunday, Ford said despite the best of his intentions, he has heard and agrees that now is not the right time for the expense of a government plane, and says the province is working with Bombardier and other partners to sell the jet.
I'm glad the Premier has backtracked. But man, we have to ask, why did he make this outrageous decision in the first place?
But critics say this wasn't a change of heart, but rather the Premier feeling the heat. And they don't think this reversal will be enough to forget.
The only reason he's changing his mind now and selling off the plane is because he got caught with his hand in the taxpayer's pocket.
Lexi Benedict, Global News.
Several communities across central and eastern Canada are dealing with spring flooding. The chief of Peguis First Nation north of Winnipeg has declared a state of emergency.
The flood risk is now a certainty, where it is expected to exceed the banks of Fisher River in the coming days. Evacuations of our residents will be required.
The community and nearby Fisher River Creek Nation are preparing for flooding similar to 2022, when 2,000 residents were forced out and hundreds of homes were damaged. Parts of Ontario's cottage country are also flooding after another storm this weekend. The province says sandbags, flood barriers and other supports have been sent to affected communities, including Minden Hills, where an evacuation centre is now open. In Louisiana, 8 children were killed in a mass shooting this morning. The heartbreaking tragedy happened at around 6 o'clock in Shreveport. Police have described the attack as a domestic disturbance spanning 3 homes. In total, 10 people were shot, including the 8 children who died. Their ages range as young as 1 to 14 years old. Police say some of the children in the homes were the suspect's descendants. The attacker was shot dead by police. Vancouver's Lapu Lapu Festival was the site of the deadliest attack in the city's history. 11 people were killed when an SUV was driven through a crowded street. Nearly a year after the tragedy, Grace Key is at this year's event. Grace.
Lapu Lapu Day of Togetherness is being held at the Italian Cultural Center, several kilometers away from where the tragedy occurred last year. Safety has been a top priority. Vehicle barriers have been set up around the event, and there is a large police presence here. Organizer Filipino BC says it is a day of reflection, connection, and community care, and they understand that people are at different stages of healing. Some families and survivors held a protest just outside the event. They say there needs to be more financial transparency regarding funds for victims, and that the event is inappropriate with families still healing.
Everybody in the community stepped up to really try to get the help to the people that most critically needed it. And unfortunately, the misappropriation of the funds just made it so that wasn't the case.
We were neglected. I had urgent medical needs that I felt between the system cracks, and any ethical nonprofit would recognize that and see why these funds would be needed in those moments.
We provided care in different ways, from the disbursements from the United Way, through financial assistance, paying for rent, paying for, transportation, daycare, groceries, that sort of thing.
Kaji Adam Lowe, who's accused of ramming his vehicle into a crowd of people at last year's event, has been declared fit to stand trial. He's charged with 11 counts of murder and 31 counts of attempted murder. Colleen?
Grace Key in Vancouver. Thanks, Grace. Blazing a trail for new medical technology. Coming up, the inventions by a Toronto doctor that are changing and saving lives. A Canadian doctor is pioneering new medical devices that are helping to save lives here in Canada and in the U.S. As Catherine Ward reports, one of his innovations is aimed at protecting the one organ most commonly affected by traumatic injury.
The liver is the #1 organ injured in trauma, so blunt trauma, automobile accident, falls.
Dr. João Rezende Neto has made it his mission to transform how medical teams manage liver injuries.
Patients with grade 5 liver injuries, the mortality rate is around 50%, so half of the patients die. And these patients die from bleeding.
The liver airbag was his first innovation, a tool designed to help control bleeding without damaging the organ.
It's a device that we apply on the liver. We inflate the device so that the pressure is applied uniformly. That is made out of medical grade polyethylene plastic that does not adhere to the clots and allows the surgeon to, after the bleeding has subsided, to remove the device without dislodging the clots.
The funding received for this device through a big win at the annual Angel's Den Research Pitch Competition in Toronto made it possible for Dr. Rezende Neto to tackle a second problem, improving the rate at which abdominal muscles can be closed after surgery.
The AbClo device comes as a non-invasive device that goes on top of the abdomen with a binder that goes behind the patient's back. And daily, we rotate these little knobs at the bedside in the ICU.
This second device has been approved by the FDA and Health Canada, and now is in use across Canada and the United States.
Being able to grow this innovation, it was able to have the science background that was really necessary to have clinicians not only in Canada but North America and globally to really understand the value of this innovation and to bring it into their practice.
Before ABCLO here at St. Mike's, we were closing approximately 56% of our patients primarily. With ABCLO, and as long as you put it on early, after the first operation, the primary closure rate jumped to 94%. Nowadays, we don't have to fear the open abdomen because of the ABCLO device. That was the best title you could give, and that represents what we feel nowadays.
Catherine Ward, Global News, Toronto.
The pro sports bet that may not pay off. Ahead, why LIV Golf is losing its lucrative Saudi backers and the ramifications for the sport. A life jacket worn by a woman who escaped the sinking Titanic has been sold at an auction for more than $1.2 million, double what the vest was expected to fetch.
It's interesting on multiple levels. We look here, Mabel Francatelli. This is the first-class passenger that was wearing this life jacket. We can see her here.
It was worn by Laura Mabel Francatelli, who, along with other survivors from her lifeboat, signed it. She was one of about 700 people to survive the tragedy in 1912. Roughly 1,500 passengers and crew died in the disaster. A seat cushion from one of the Titanic's lifeboats was also sold at the auction for about $720,000. An upstart golf league that lured many of the best players away from the PGA may go belly up. Saudi Arabia, which paid a fortune to sign some of the biggest stars, is reportedly poised to pull support for LIV Golf. Eric Sorensen explains why and what it could mean for the sport.
LIV Golf still teed off this weekend in Mexico City, but doubts are mounting over the future of the tour. The Financial Times and others reported this week the Saudi Public Investment Fund was on the verge of cutting its support. Sergio Garcia said the fund's governor told him months ago there was a long-term plan.
Transitioning.
But this week, Yasser Al Rumayyan said some investments are being reviewed for economic feasibility. LIV's CEO declared this season is going ahead full throttle, though structural changes are coming.
If you ask me that if we were managed very, very tightly, I would say absolutely. Can this be challenging? Absolutely, and that's what we signed up for.
When the Upstart Tour kicked off 4 years ago, the Saudis spent hundreds of millions of dollars to lure top golfers.
If there's a pay increase, then at my age, they'd have to be stupid not to take it.
To some, it looked like sports washing. An attempt by Saudi Arabia to divert attention from its human rights abuses by partnering with the clean-cut image of pro golfers. Rory McIlroy turned it down.
Any decision that you make in your life that's purely for money usually doesn't end up going the right way.
But a year later, facing an expensive feud, the PGA and the European Tour struck a partnership with Saudi investors.
We just realized that we were better off together than we were fighting or apart.
But a merger never happened. LIV is a hit in places like Australia, but never got a foothold in the lucrative North American market. And now stars Brooks Koepka and Patrick Reed have decided to go back to the PGA.
Saudi Arabia.
Add to that new Saudi priorities like hosting the 2034 World Cup, and this year, the war in the Persian Gulf, which is hitting the Saudi economy hard.
Things in the world have changed since then, so it's possible that the Saudis' priorities have shifted since the beginning of the year.
This analyst says LIV would be hard-pressed to pay its bills if the Saudis pull out.
LIV would have to scramble elsewhere to get funding to somehow fill that void, because that is a lot of money that has been promised to players, which contracts, which prize money.
LIV is operating this weekend and perhaps through the summer, but uncertainty hangs over the players.
Para mí no tenía sentido.
For me, says John Rahm, it didn't make sense to waste time thinking about it. We're here to play. That's it. A key figure to watch is Bryson DeChambeau, one of golf's biggest stars. His contract with LIV runs to the end of this season. But then what will he do? And what will the Saudis do? Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Monkey magic, the latest primate to go viral. What our fascination says about humans. Next. If social media is any indication, we seem particularly interested in baby monkeys and their stuffies. Well, now yet another cute pairing has captured our attention. Heidi Petracek introduces us to little UG and explains why these tiny primates often find a spot in our hearts.
Yuji is tiny, much smaller than the stuffed dog he clings to at this Guadalajara zoo. His name refers to an anime character, says this veterinarian, a character that has unbreakable strength. Yuji is a patis monkey, a species from Central Africa. The little 6-week-old has become quite an attraction here and hangs on to his stuffy because his mother was young and couldn't care for him properly. This is completely natural behavior for him. He needs to feel sheltered and safe, says the head of the zoo's primates department. It's not the first time the world has become enamored with a primate clutching a puffy pal. Punch, the Japanese macaque, went viral after zookeepers in Ichikawa gave him a stuffed orangutan toy after he was abandoned by his mother. The memes, seemingly endless, the IKEA toy sold out.
Where they have the big eyes, the big round face. We as humans gravitate towards that.
As board chair for Canada's only dedicated primate sanctuary, Rochelle Hansen knows just why people love them, but adds a word of caution.
The downside of this is people look at baby monkeys and say, oh, I can take good care of that baby monkey. I want to be a mom to a baby monkey. But part of what they need is they need that species-specific socialization and upbringing.
Storybook Farm is home to another famous monkey, Darwin, now almost 14. He was found as a baby in a North York IKEA parking lot in 2012, wearing a diaper and a shearling coat. He was seized by Animal Services and now lives at Storybook in peace among other primates.
Our goal at the sanctuary here then is to provide that opportunity for them to be who they are.
That means making sure these wee monkeys eventually let go of their stuffies and join a family unit in their own species. Punch is on the way, according to a recent update from Japan. Yuji's turn is yet to come. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
So cute. And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Colleen Christie. Tonight's Your Canada is Alder Flats, Alberta. We love seeing your Canada. Please keep emailing your photos to globalnational@globalnews.ca. Thanks for watching. Donna will be back tomorrow. Have a good night.